The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, 1599 by Christopher Marlowe, is a pastoral poem from the English Renaissance 1485–1603. Marlowe composed the poem in iambic tetrameter, 4 feet of one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable, in 6 stanzas, and each stanza is composed of 2 rhyming couplets. Thus the first line of the poem reads, "Come live with me and be my love." The Passionate Shepherd to His Love 1599 by Christopher Marlowe 1564–1593. Come live with me, and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove, that hills and valleys, dales and fields, woods, or steepy mountain yields, and we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals, and I will make thee beds of roses, and Athusoned fragrant posies, a cap of flowers, and a kirtle, embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And, if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me, and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me, and be my love. The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. Summary. Why didn't you come live with me and be my lover? We will enjoy all the pleasures that can be found in valleys, groves, hills, fields, woods, and steep mountains. And we'll lounge on the rocks and watch the shepherds feed their sheep near shallow rivers, and we'll listen to birds sing sweet songs to the waterfalls of those rivers. And I will make you a bed made out of roses and thousands of sweet-smelling flowers. I will make you a cap of flowers, and a dress with myrtle leaves sewn through it. I will also make you a gown from the finest wool, which we will shear from our beautiful lambs. I will make slippers with linings to keep out the cold, their buckles will be made of pure gold. And I will make a belt made out of straw and ivy buds, its clasps made from coral and its studs made from amber. So if these pleasures sound good to you, why don't you come live with me and be my lover? The shepherd boys will dance and sing for you every morning in May. If these pleasures convince you, then come live with me and be my lover. The Passionate Shepherd is a poem of seduction. In it, the speaker tries to convince his listener to come to the country and be his lover. The speaker makes his case on the basis of the luxuries they will enjoy together in the countryside, describing it as a place of pleasure that is at once sensual and innocent. He wants his love to simply sit on the rocks for a while and appreciate the scene, without worrying about their responsibilities. Although the joys the speaker describes may be fleeting, they are still rich and seductive. Listing them, the speaker makes a case for embracing the pure pleasure of love and rejects the idea that doing so might have negative consequences. For the speaker, the countryside is a very sensual place. He is attentive to the materials and objects one finds in rural life: straw, ivy buds, beds of roses, and fragrant posies. In his fantasy, he brings these objects into contact with the body of his love, making them into garments and beds. The fact that the speaker uses these objects in a suggestive fashion implies his underlying desire. He seems to want to take their place and caress his love, to pay close and sensual attention to the lover's body. As its title suggests, The Passionate Shepherd is thus a passionate poem, full of sexual tension. But, diverging from traditions that associate sexuality with sin and death, the poem portrays this sexuality as an innocent. There seem to be no costs associated with the pleasures the speaker describes in his seduction. Instead, the countryside is presented as a place of play and sheer joy, song, and dance. The speaker refuses to admit any problems, troubles, or downsides into the world he imagines occupying with his love. Instead, he urges his love to just live in the moment, enjoying the sensual pleasures he lists for their own sake, without worrying about the consequences. Indeed, the speaker offers these delights as an escape from responsibilities and consequences. Of course, this isn't necessarily a realistic depiction of love, and some readers may feel that the poem is too idealized. In that vein, Sir Walter Raleigh, a contemporary of Marlowe, directly objects to the speaker of The Passionate Shepherd, in his own poem, The Nymph's Reply. It's arguable that because the speaker of Marlowe's poem does not acknowledge any costs or problems associated with love, he fails to seduce the reader. This love is too perfect to be real or meaningful. Even so, the poem's speaker is steadfast in his argument. Love, essentially, is pleasure, and is meant to be enjoyed without guilt. It's important that the speaker locates the pleasures he describes in a specific landscape of valleys, groves, hills and fields, woods or steepy mountain. Though this landscape is described in great detail and with considerable feeling, it is located at an implicit distance from the speaker's love. The poem implies that this love lives in the city, with all its political entanglements, pollution, and grit. The poem thus draws an implicit contrast between the city and country, making the former dirty, busy, and unpleasant, and the latter peaceful, harmonious, and filled with pleasure. The speaker begins the poem with an invitation, "Come live with me." The word, "come," suggests that his love must cross some distance before being able to enjoy the pleasures the poem describes, which means that this love must live somewhere else. In keeping with the poem's general refusal to describe anything negative or unpleasant, the speaker doesn't name this other place. Yet the implication is clearly that the beloved lives in an urban environment that contrasts with the speaker's idealized depiction of rural life. This urban place must not be particularly pleasant. If it were, the speaker probably wouldn't be so adamant that he and this love go live elsewhere. Indeed, given that the speaker lists specific things about life in the country in order to entice the lover to leave the city behind, readers can assume that the city doesn't share any of these positive attributes. For example, where the countryside is filled with melodious birds, the city likely screeches with cacophonous noise. While in the country the lovers can sit idly and watch shepherds tending to their flocks, in the city they'd probably have to toil away at work. In the country the love could wear a gown of fine wool, gold-buckled slippers, and a belt woven from straw. None of these lovely, delicate clothes would hold up in the dirty city streets. In the tradition that Marlowe was working in, called the pastoral, poets pose the innocence and pleasures of country life against city life, where they locate all the politics and problems that usually affect people. The speaker's presentation of the countryside here follows the ideals of the pastoral tradition. It is an innocent and pleasure-filled space that acts an implicit critique of the city. The poem thus argues for a return to a simpler, purer way of life embodied by the countryside. Of course, rural life was certainly not as easy as the speaker makes it out to be, and the poem notably lacks any mention of, say, what happens when winter comes. In this sense, its depiction of rural life is as innocent and perhaps purposefully naive as its vision of love. One of the rural pleasures that the speaker lists stands out from the rest. In the poem's second stanza he describes the pleasure of watching the shepherds feed their flocks. Indeed, the title implies that the speaker himself is also a shepherd. This reference locates the poem within a long tradition of European poetry, the pastoral. Pastoral poems usually focus on shepherds, presenting their work as innocent and joyful, though, in reality, herding sheep is difficult and dirty work. Like the poets who came before him, then, the speaker suppresses much of the reality of rural life and agricultural labor. Instead, he presents an idealized, uncomplicated view of a complicated place. That he focuses specifically on shepherds suggests not only that the countryside is a more pleasant place to live than the city, but also that there is a unique nobility to the kind of work that brings people closer to nature. After its first stanza, the poem consists of a long list of rural pleasures. This list opens and closes with shepherds, the traditional central figures in pastoral poetry. In lines 5 to 6, the speaker notes that he and his love will watch the shepherds feed their flocks. This is a strange way to seduce his love, and one might wonder why watching other people work would be particularly enjoyable. The answer to this question, the speaker implies, is that shepherding is different from other kinds of work. It is not particularly painful or unpleasant, instead, it is enjoyable to do and watch. In lines 13 to 14, the speaker even suggests that he and his love own sheep themselves, since he refers to gathering wool from our pretty lambs. It seems, then, that this idyllic scene brings the speaker and his love directly into this noble, joyful work. After listing the many rural pleasures that he and his beloved will enjoy, the speaker returns to the image of shepherds, now describing them as being in a happy, celebratory mood. They are singing and dancing. They seem in no way wearied or worn down by their work. Instead, they participate with gusto in all the rural pleasures that the speaker describes. Pastoral work, then, seems to be something energizing and fulfilling. The implication is that the shepherds aren't exhausted after their days because they find some sort of satisfaction and meaning in their labor, which, the poem implies, is largely absent from the ignoble toil of those living far from nature. Even as the speaker celebrates the beauty and nobility of working in a natural setting, he overlooks the fact that that work is actually difficult and exhausting. To seduce this love, the speaker keeps glossing over the truth, though whether the speaker does so purposefully is up for debate.